Mainstream media loves to paint entrepreneurship as a glorious endeavor, where smart people who work hard and sacrifice it all can build, create, and amass more money than ever thought imaginable. But what they fail to mention is the unspoken burden you take on when you decide to walk the path of entrepreneurship. I'm talking about stress when you're not making enough money, worry when you're making enough but scared it will all go away, burnout when you work too hard, depression during a slow month, guilt when you procrastinate, imposter syndrome when you get praise, and poor sleep to top it all off. I'm talking about mental health. Coming from a place of honesty, about once a year off a pretty hardcore panic attack. It always happens when an abnormal barrage of emergencies decide to present themselves at the same time. There's this feeling that there's so much to do and new issues are coming in faster than I can fix the old ones. And when I get stressed past a certain threshold, I just melt down, usually resulting in a booze binge, making me feel 10 times worse. So I set off on a path to improve my own mental health. Having been an entrepreneur for over a decade, I learned that the shit is gonna hit the fan periodically just because that's how the world works. So I wanted to change my reactions, or should I say create a lack of reaction to these events. In this video, I'm gonna share the most effective mental health practices that I've learned. And I'm not gonna hold back. We'll talk about the dreaded T word, therapy, and how I recently learned that I had it all wrong, psychedelics and what medicines I found helpful, and we'll also get into how to handle specific situations, like when outside forces tank your business, or how to deal with an internet troll who has it out for you. And sure, maybe you're an entrepreneur and you don't feel burdened by worry and stress. 99% of the time, that's how I feel too. And it's no surprise. There's been plenty of studies that show that entrepreneurs have a higher tolerance for stress in the first place. But we're talking about optimization here. If you're operating with even just a low level of guilt, stress, or burnout, wouldn't you want to get rid of it? I agree. Now, before we get started, if you like content like this, please let me know by optimizing the like button and I'll make more of it for you. Let's start with therapy. If there's one thing I've gotten completely wrong, it's therapy. Up until recently, my concept of therapy was how they portrayed it in Good Will Hunting. You sit down, someone asks you a bunch of questions about how you feel, and eventually just by talking it out, you come to your own conclusions and eventually feel better. I've tried this format in the past and I've indeed benefited from it. Both my parents had passed away by the time I was 24, and that sent me into depression. Talk therapy definitely helped me out of it, but I wouldn't say I learned anything about myself. More recently, I discovered trauma-focused therapy, when you're resolving past traumatic events that have shaped your entire life and programmed you to be a certain way, usually not in a healthy way. My first reaction was, that's great and all, but I don't have trauma. I've never been to war, I've never seen someone killed, I've never been abused, thank God. But what I learned is that everyone picks up trauma, even if you have the Guinness Book best childhood ever. Imagine this scenario. You're 4 years old, trying to go to bed, and you're dead convinced there's a monster in your room. You scream out for mommy, and that day she decides, you know what, he can't be scared of monsters forever, let's have him cry it out. Your 4-year-old brain can't make sense of it. Mom just left you to get eaten by monsters. You feel abandoned and unloved, and you cry your heart out for an hour. Then what happens is trauma steps in and sees that this is way too intense, so it covers up the pain and makes you forget. So you go on for the next 40 years unconscious of the strange underlying feeling of being unloved and that people will abandon you. By the way, this exact scenario happened to me, and I didn't discover it until I found psychedelic therapy. It's disclaimer time. I'm not a doctor. This isn't medical advice, and we're not talking about substances that are most likely illegal in your country except through approved clinical situation. And what I'm about to say will certainly get this video demonetized, but it's 1000% worth it if I can help someone. Let's start with MDMA. MDMA is making huge headway in clinical trials for its effectiveness in treating PTSD. A big part of that is through funding from folks like Tim Ferriss and his SciSafe Foundation. So that experience about the monsters and mommy not saving me, that whole scene was completely blocked from my memory. But during an MDMA solo therapy session, it presented itself vividly. I saw how much it affected my whole life. How mom doesn't love me turned into I'm unlovable, and how much effort I put into covering this up. Hell, if I didn't uncover this toxic belief, I'd never have made this video in the first place. Because unloved people don't show their vulnerability. Needless to say, after I saw the situation from an adult perspective, it simply just dissolved from being an issue. Next, San Pedro, a cactus similar to peyote with the psychoactive component mescaline. This medicine has been used in indigenous cultures all over North and South America for centuries. My personal experience is that it's extremely effective in getting you back to core values. It's easy to get mixed up in chasing money and respect, but to what end? At the end of the day, isn't it just about family, friends, and love? I'm also a big fan of microdosing both LSD and psilocybin mushrooms separately, of course. Microdosing benefits include neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to learn, and especially get unstuck from old ways. I find that LSD microdosing is great for creative work and learning new things. And work stops being labeled as good work and bad work. It just becomes work. Mushrooms microdosed in my experience are a mood booster. I find it very hard to be anything but happy. Let's end the psychedelic category with ketamine, which is really more of an anesthetic disassociative. It's also illegal outside of a clinical setting and can be very habit forming. The reason I mention it is that it's been found to be extremely effective for treatment-resistant depression, and ketamine clinics are popping up all over both US and Europe. In my personal experience, I found that a ketamine journey feels like a complete system reset. It's like reality and my sense of self are completely dissolved and then reformed again in proper order, like a hard drive drive defragmentation. I just run better afterwards. To learn more about ketamine and its applications for depression, check out Tim Ferriss's interview of Dr. John Crystal. Now let's get into some more practical, less illegal approaches to mental health. Starting with meditation. I'm on a 1,783-day streak according to Calm, a meditation app. But I'll be the first to say that I'm far from mastering it. Why do I think that meditation is important for entrepreneurs? You've probably seen one of these meme graphics before, illustrating how business lows can have you calling yourself a failure, and the wins will have you convinced you're a genius. Both reactions are bad for your mental health. Calling yourself a genius is bad for your ego, makes you feel that learning is unnecessary, and you start making decisions with less scrutiny because how could a genius make a bad decision? Meditation makes you less reactionary. Something could happen, like a coworker losing their temper, and it's like you actually have a moment to decide if you're going to freak out or address it logically. I've tried a lot of meditation techniques. The app Waking Up, to me, is the best of the best, as its creator Sam Harris is really good at giving you an agnostic approach to meditation, of which you can quickly feel its benefits. More recently, I've tried the Naval Ravikant technique of simply sitting for an hour per day, watching your thoughts. Eventually, your mind just gives up trying to get your attention, and you hit mental inbox 0, and everything becomes clear. Now, not everyone has the time or the desire to sit for an hour a day, but I will say you get what you put in. By the way, I'd like to give a shout out to Pitchbox, the sponsor of this video. Pitchbox is an end-to-end link building platform for SEO agencies, brands, and affiliate publishers. It's my outreach tool of choice, and I use it across all my businesses. With Pitchbox, my team is able to streamline prospecting and outreach, achieve better email deliverability, and manage the whole link building process in one place. It is hands down the best outreach tool out there and a game changer for link builders. If I had to choose between Pitchbox and any other outreach tool, I'm going Pitchbox all day. If you want to make your link building process more efficient and effective, give it a try. To sign up with Pitchbox, use the link in the description and get 50% off your first month. Now back to the video. I'm also a big fan of ice baths for mental resilience. Convincing yourself to get into near freezing water is conditioning yourself for hardship. Eventually, everything becomes less hard, less stressful. And then once in the water, you're training yourself for how to deal with discomfort. It's like a simulator for the turbulence of entrepreneurship. Also, I learned from Dr. Andrew Huberman that ice baths are one of the only sustainable dopamine net positive activities you can do. If you drink alcohol, pig out on a bunch of fast food, or shoot up a bunch of heroin, your dopamine spikes and you feel good temporarily, but then it plummets and stays low for a long period to get you back to homeostasis. Ice baths work the opposite way. Your dopamine drops as you experience the discomfort, and then it snaps back to above baseline for hours. That's why it feels amazing. Apparently, you can buy portable ice baths on Amazon now, so it's become more accessible. Then there's TRE, trauma release exercises. This is something I recently found, and I admit it's weird as hell, but I'm loving it. If a mammal experiences a trauma-causing event, like a near-death experience, you'll see it drop down and shake so that the trauma gets processed and doesn't live on in the body. All mammals can do this. Humans can do it too, but our society-adapted brains have told us it's not very attractive to shake on the ground. With TRE, you can access this innate mechanism, and I can tell you from my experience, it's extremely relaxing. I sleep amazing afterwards, my body feels brand new, and hopefully whatever traumas my body is storing are starting to get released. To learn more about TRE, I definitely recommend finding a local instructor. Next, one of my favorite ways to manage stress is through physical fitness. There's been plenty of studies showing how exercise burns off stress, improves endorphins, and is one of the key factors in lifespan. I do 4 hours of resistance training per week and 3 hours of zone 2 cardio. After that, we have massage. This study showed that massage showed a significant difference in measurable stress factors compared to a control group. In Thailand, where I live, an hour massage is only $6, so there really isn't ever a reason not to get at least one per week. Next, and this is a big one, is sleep optimization. Most health experts would say that sleep is a top 3 factor when it comes to both physical and mental health. I'm sure you can agree that a poor night's sleep is pretty much a day ruiner. These are typical sleep scores that I'm getting through my Oura Ring tracking device, and 3 years ago, these numbers were about half. 80% of it boils down to light, getting plenty of natural sunlight upon waking, and avoiding blue light in the evening with blue blocker glasses, and putting a limit on screen time. To learn more about sleep hacking, I made a full video on it, so make sure to watch it after you finish here. Link in the description. Next, let's talk about flow state. A flow state occurs when someone is completely immersed in a task or activity. Time goes by fast, everything seems easy. Maybe you get that from creating art, listening to music, gaming, or even putting together Legos. It doesn't matter, just try to get there at least once per week. Flow state has been linked to increased happiness, motivation, creativity, and emotional regulation. Next, let's talk about supplements. I would only take a stress-reducing supplement if I were facing a crisis. For example, I hate public speaking, so I'll take 100 milligrams of L-theanine, the calming component of green tea, before I go on stage. Or phosphatidylserine when my body is overstressed from fasting or those annual meltdowns I used to get. You want to give your mind the chance to build its own mental health muscles, not rely on pills. So listen to a medical professional and avoid supplements and meds unless you have a medical need. And even then, I'd be looking for an alternative long-term solution. Now, what do you do if you're doing all the things and life throws crap at you like it eventually will? Let's run through some scenarios. Scenario number 1, your business has a bad month, quarter, or year. First off, this is completely normal. No business has a linear growth path with no speed bumps. But there's no way around it, you're gonna feel like shit when it happens. This recently happened to the website traffic of one of my businesses when Google made an update to its algorithms. It doesn't matter that I have multiple businesses growing crazy like this, your mind only wants to pay attention to what it's lost. Human brains are wired towards loss aversion, where it's better not to lose $10 than to find $10. For me, the best way to overcome this mental quirk is through diversification. Have multiple traffic sources, multiple websites, multiple businesses. If you only have one website creating income for you, you're gonna lose your mind if it has a bad month. But if you have 5 income sources, if one struggles, it's not that big of a deal. Also, I know how tempting it is to log into your tracking software every day to see if things have changed, but that's only gonna drive you more insane. So set limits on tracking software to only once or twice a week. Also, avoid drinking at all costs. It's just gonna make your problems seem 10x worse and immobilize you from taking action once you're hungover. Instead, go get a massage, hit the gym, or take an ice bath. Get out of your head and into your body. Scenario 2, someone screwed you over. An employee stole from you, a customer ended up being insane, a business partner ended up being a flake. Think of it like this. If you found out that your girlfriend was dating someone else the whole time, yes, of course it would hurt. But aren't you glad you found out now rather than 5 years later? Consider it a blessing, learn some lessons about character assessment, and move on. Scenario 3, trolls on social media are driving you insane. Let me just say that if you're growing a personal brand, you're guaranteed to attract trolls. If you reach enough people, 10,000, 100,000, a million people, don't you think it's extremely likely that you'll find someone who has a different view from you? And from time to time, you'll find a real gem of a human who tells you to die in a dumpster fire. It may seem like a good idea to respond to trolls like this, to argue with them. Trust me, it's not. You will never be able to convince anyone on the internet that they're wrong. It's like telling someone their religion is wrong and yours is right. Instead, think of it like this. There's good people and there's bad people in the world. Would you categorize someone who spends hours a day attempting to make people feel bad on the internet good or bad? Bad, of course. So it would be a clear red flag if someone like this was actually in your tribe and supported you. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped. If you'd like more content like this, make sure to subscribe and smash the like button.